This is a critique of the September the 12th, 2017 University Park board meeting, which is 4 hours long. So it has to be a critique. Who has 4 hours to sit and listen to this? Some of it is good and some of it is just idle chit-chat and sidebars. You take a look. Public comments are good for the residents, but should they be taken over by outside special interest groups? Did these developers bypass the Planning Commission, which is the zoning? And did they bypass the other board members as well? Public-private partnerships are sometimes good, but is it good for this village? They're short of money. They're missing $14 million, either mismanaged or stolen. The pension funds are not being paid. They're not contributing to the pension fund. They've had tremendous layoffs. The audits are 2.5 years behind. They cannot hold up their end of the bargain. What do you think? You take a look and listen.
Miss Katrina Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to give a status update of an inquiry that was done into the tree issue. I approached the village offering assistance in diagnosing the problem with the dead trees. And I offered my assistance to organize help to address the problem once we knew what that was. And also to educate and to inform the residents of the village about the findings and approaches to the eradication of whatever was causing it, and to disseminate best practices. I live here in the village, but I wear a lot of hats in my professional life. I'm a professor of biology, and I teach the environmental biology class for Governor State when necessary. I'm the former horticultural educator for Champaign County. I'm a master gardener, and I have advanced degrees in plant and soil science and ag systems, and I'm trained in commercial agriculture. So I happen to live here, so I just wanted to offer the skill sets, that I have, because I'm, concerned, about that area. I met with officials from Extension, from the Bradley-Burbank area. We conference called on the matter. Extension and I, we went out and we did a survey day. We, didn't know. I had some suspicions of what the causes were, but that wasn't confirmed. Extension and I went out on a Saturday, and we drove around, and our intention was to collect samples. We had formed a collaboration with the plant clinic at University of Illinois that was going to do some diagnostic work for us. So what we found was very surprising. It was actually shocking. I couldn't sleep, for the whole weekend. I was just in a state of shock because this is something I'd never seen on such a broad scale. What we have at University Park is a total devastation of the plant species called the ash tree. this was something that was done by a very invasive insect called it's called the emerald ash borer. And there were several protocols throughout the country, and there are federal protocols to try to protect species from this particular insect. And in order for it to work, communities have to have a conservation portion in their government, to look out for this, to monitor, to just, supervise the health of trees. This was first spotted in hazelcrest. So if there was a conservation element in place, then those inoculations would or should have gone up early, to keep the species, from being destroyed. So that's no longer possible because you have a total devastation. And I'm told that of the 100 counties in Illinois, 61 counties now have this issue. So the question, is how much of that came, from this area? And then, how much of it could have been prevented with a conservation program in place. Here are the partners. We have the University of Extension. We have their Natural Resources Division. We have the Illinois Department of Agriculture and the Department of Natural Resources. And I conferred with the foresters whose job it is to monitor the state of Illinois. And so what the recommendation is that those trees must come down. And for the village, it's a matter of managing the liability because the right storm is going to bring all those trees down at once. And so here's what happens. The village can lose power and the power companies are going to demand, that those trees be cleared before they come in to do anything. And you won't be able to get someone to cut a tree down, if it falls on homes, whatever, for less than $2,000 a tree, because the price fixed in order to get money from the insurance companies. But here's the other problem. No one's home insurance is going to reimburse them when these trees come down on homes, when they come down on cars, and when they come down on people. With the ash borer, how it destroys a tree, it girdles, the support system on the inside. So the inside is rotting. So the person can be walking under a tree and a 100-pound limb can just fall, without, any provocation. So this is the recommendation right now, is to find a way, even if this means that the University Park has to float a bond issue, to accomplish this, to get those trees down in advance, of any event, bringing them down. Following this, the recommendation is that a tree commission or a tree committee be formed. There are technical resources available to University Park in order to assist the codification of ordinances that will manage and govern trees. And there is education officials from the Illinois Department of Agriculture that is willing to work with University Park and its residents on education going forward.
Thank you. And that's all. Just so, I didn't get your name again. What's your name again? Christina Johnson?
Katrina Johnson.
Katrina Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. You've done so much research on this, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. One of the residents, Jewel Thompson, she did some of her research, and she told me it was the emerald ash borer that actually caused devastation.
Yes.
But I've been watching my 2 trees that I planted by hand in my front yard just go to death, really. The bark start falling off. You can see the little bitty marks of the borer actually going through the bark of the tree.
Yes.
And therefore, the 2 trees of mine are dead out front.
Yes.
But luckily, they're not really, really tall. But what we can do as a village is to seek this particular, partnership.
Yes.
And if we can do that, and we can do it as soon as possible, it's going to help because there's so many trees out there right now a couple hundred feet tall.
Absolutely.
And I see them all around the village. We've started a small project with Gary, and I've noticed quite a few trees has come down. So, but we need to be able to partner with them as soon as possible, because now that you tell us that insurance, our house insurance, would not cover this.
Right.
Wow.
Because it's on the parkway portion, which belongs to the village. And I'm just talking about the ash devastation, but this is in addition, to the trees that were already, rotting, and what have you. And then there is some Dutch elm, like disease. So the recommendation, the next step, right now is to do an inventory, to follow the best practices that surrounding suburbs has adopted. So the forester, who's based in Homewood, he oversaw the establishment of their management program. He has protocols that have to be followed to establish that. Now, these protocols is a prerequisite, to any funding. If it's for like tree replacement or whatever might be out there, to help, to fund the cost of bringing these trees down. We have the extension official who's out of the country until October 4th. He's volunteered to help to search for grants, that would assist the village in bringing these down.
So they would basically have to partner with Gary initially to get this thing rolling.
You have to form, you have to do the tree inventory first, and once you have that form, you can get the estimates from what is recommended is to go into a contractual agreement, with a tree service that's bonded and insured, and it will be more cost effective to the village, to do it on a contractual basis. And I'm told that the village could get this at a reduced cost for labor, because the arborers get like $65 an hour for this. And the village, can negotiate the cost at $35 an hour. But the inventory will give the village the idea of exactly how many trees have to be cut down. So in a contractual agreement, you can compare, what was done to what needed to be done.
Just a couple things. First of all, I think you'll find on the agenda this evening is a contract to have at least 50 trees removed. So that's one thing. Second thing is, a number of years ago, I proposed a number of programs basically for our kids to keep them busy, because all of our kids are not athletes. Some of them have other talents. And one of the programs that I recommended, which is really kind of right up your expertise, was an intergenerational gardening program.
Yes.
So we take the senior citizens and have them work along with our youth, and partner with Governor State University, their horticulture department, to have kind of an academic but practical gardening program.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if, because it would be pretty cost competitive, I think. It wouldn't be very expensive to do a program like that. If somebody like yourself, and if you have others who would volunteer, maybe work along with our Parks and Recreation Department for next year to have a gardening program like that. I think a number of our senior citizens would enjoy getting out and doing that kind of thing.
I, did that project for a school district before, where the kids actually designed the plots, and they had an intergenerational gardening opportunity where they raised sweet potatoes. And then during their fall festival, they got to, pack bags and pass out what they'd grown. And I also wrote the service learning model for like community school gardening for Parkland College. And my, opinion, that is I do think that the village can benefit from extension-based programs, that, are free. Things like the 4-H, things like, food, there's a food stamp nutrition program, whatever, programs to teach people how to cut grass. There's a junior master gardener program, things of that nature. And maybe the Rigel Farm, could be, used for some of those things.
First Baptist Church also had a program where they were guarding and having a farm stand.
Yes.
And so, you know, that would be a really, really nice partnership.
Yes, I'm from a farming family, so I'm for, those kinds of things. So I'm, willing to help, wherever I can.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Don, you said we need to create an inventory. Did you have an inventory of what you studied to point to date?
Excuse me?
Do you have a list of trees that you use for the study? Because we do, like Trustee Payne said, we have a 50 tree contract on the table now. Maybe we could target some of the ash trees.
Well, you're talking about hundreds of trees, in addition, to what's in the budget for the dead trees. I went out with Public Works, and, I saw the dead trees that were marked for removal. And so in addition, to what the budget allows, this is a large project, that, and it's recommended that a larger company, come in and enter into a contractual relationship, and if the university or the village needs to, maybe float a bond issue to bring them down as a method to manage their liabilities.
Okay, sorry.
Your contact information.
We have it.
Yes.
We do have it. We set up the meeting with her last week. Excuse me.
I'd like to know, when do we get to put in for these grants? And can we put in for the grants before we try to get started? Would they come in?
Okay, the timetable, I'm gonna, get out of the way, of business here. Once the inventory is established, bids can be, received by the trustees. And then, you go with the lowest bid. And then, when this official comes back, he's in Kenya on October the 4th, I will get the information, on what grants, if any, that he's able to locate. He just missed one by a couple of weeks by Gordon Arboretum, who's another partner in this, for the tree replanting. Because once those trees come up, some trees have to be replanted, because you have trees that have to come down whole blocks on both sides. And this was a problem that was allowed to fester for 13 years. So it would have been cheaper, to manage those trees as opposed to having to cut them down.
Okay, Ms. Johnson, I want to first thank you for months ago, actually, come to my office and bringing this to my attention.
Yes.
We did talk, and she offered a great wealth of knowledge, and I asked her to help with us. We will be forming this. This came out of our town hall meeting, and this is another committee that we want to form. And we will be talking, Neva and I were talking about this just Friday as well. Ms. Green has already offered, she is a certified gardener as well.
Yes.
So I'll get back with you this Friday as we talked about, and try to get this all wrapped up. And I do have people that I've talked to in Washington, in the Department of Agriculture, that we can get some grants and work with the governor state, their reservoir, and also the forestry. The literature that they just gave me and mailed to me, there's some contacts on there for sure. So we'll get back with you, and we'll be asking for people to sign up and work with you, okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much for all your work. Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to call up, just a second, that was all that signed it. Captain Carter, Commander Davis, General Commander Norman at this time. For presentation, special presentation that I hope. It's been a year in planning, and I hope everybody will appreciate this.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Commander Robert Davis. I got that title because I am the commander of an American Legion post in Chicago that I created and founded. The title came previously because I was a 3-term commander for the largest American Legion post in the state of Illinois. And I left there and went and started my own so that I could help different parts of the city. So I want to introduce you to my team, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me. Captain Ron Carter and Chuck Norman are here to give you a presentation on a matter that we talked to the mayor about a little over a year ago. And we went out and did some due diligence and research, and we're now here to present what we found. First of all, Sergeant Major, I'm a 34-year veteran. I did Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And when I retired from the military in 2007, my goal was to come out into my community and take all of the knowledge and training that the military gave me over those 34 years and apply it to my community. In those 34 years, we were dubbed peacekeepers and nation builders. And I was sent all over the world to do just that. So now I bring that knowledge back to my community. What propelled me on this project and on my journey that I'm on now is the fact that I wanted to do something that was relevant to the veteran community, starting in my community and then elevating it and spreading it out. So, April 1st of 2015, let me back up. In December of 2014, I applied for a SFBF grant from the federal government, a program which started under Michelle Obama and Jill Biden. Supportive Services for Veteran Families, that's what SFBF is. The goal of that grant is for us to go out, the grantees, and find veterans who are homeless or at risk of being homeless and bring them on their feet by providing them housing, by providing them job connections and training, by giving them self-esteem in their community, by buying them beds, by buying them food, etc., paying their light bills and their gas bills, providing transportation for them to get back and forth to work. I was awarded $1.2 million on April 1st of 2015 to go out and execute that within the city limits of Chicago. But here's the lesson learned. While we can take a veteran off of under a viaduct and pull them out of a shelter, or take them off a park bench, the grant will only allow the grantee to help them financially for up to 9 months. So now what happens to that veteran after 9 months if they don't have the money to sustain themselves? It becomes a cycle all over again. And so when the grant ended, September 30th of last year, I joined forces with Captain Carter and some other veterans and said that we need to become an extension of that grant. We need to take it beyond them 9 months. And we need to get that veteran back on their feet and give them the means to take care of themselves and maintain themselves, them and their families. So we formed Veteran Villages LLC. Now what Veteran Villages LLC does is identify areas in the Chicago metropolitan area that we want to take private investment money along with federal money and build veteran villages where we can take our military people, our veterans, and our currently serving, and place them into the same type of situation as they were when they were serving and wearing the uniform. In other words, create a same type of scenario as if they went on Fort Bragg, or Fort Leavenworth, or Fort Riley, everything they need right there. And we are the support that they need to keep them there and to keep them engaged and to make them become productive citizens in our community. So through a series of partnering with different collaborative partners, bringing in private investment dollars, working with the Chicago Housing Authority and HUD, we have put together a comprehensive financial portfolio that we're here to talk to you about tonight. And it's concerning property that you have here in University Park. As well as being an American Legion commander, the largest veteran organization in the country, I also am a member of the Mount Point Marines Association. I also am a member of CVI, Center for Veteran Issues, and I'm also a member of NAVVETS, the National Association for Black Veterans. The latter of which is what I want to expound on right now. CVI and NAVVETS is home based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Those organizations were started at the end of Vietnam by General Robert Krokoff. And his reason for starting those organizations is because during that time, the VA did not embrace our veterans coming back from Vietnam who were of color. They had to literally fight to get medical and other services through the VA system. And General Krokoff went out and started this national organization called CVI/NAVVETS. NAVVETS, the portion of the organization, takes care of the enrollment and the membership and spread across the country. CVI is the financial piece that puts the housing and supportive services for the veterans in place to create veteran villages. So when I joined CVI NAVVETS, General Krokoff summoned me to Milwaukee, and he said, "Commander, I want you to take what I did here in Milwaukee, and take it back to the Chicago metropolitan area and duplicate it." So what we're going to show you tonight is a few pictures of some of his efforts. He has taken a portion of Milwaukee and Racine and Green Bay and built these veteran villages. And once he built them to house them, the supportive services, the jobs, the job training, the VA connections for medical services and all of that, it's their responsibility to take care of all of that for that veteran and that family. So, Kevin, can we show them just a few of the pictures of General Krokoff's efforts in Milwaukee?
Trustees, dignitaries, citizens. My name is Captain Ron Carter. I was commissioned Second Lieutenant United States Army from the Virginia Military Institute in 1978. And I was the #1 draft pick of the Los Angeles Lakers. I played on the 79-acre championship team with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Let me see the ring. I hate to break the bad news to you. This is my military ring. But Dr. Jerry Buss, the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, was a real estate developer. I don't know how many of you knew that. But the parent company of the LA Lakers was a company called Mariani Buss Associates. And while I was playing, both myself and one of my teammates, who you probably have heard of, Mitch Kupchak, we decided that we would go to grad school. And I was able to get a master's from Pepperdine University in business, and Mitch got a master's from UCLA. And he took over the basketball team, and I took over the real estate company. And we proceeded to grow the Laker empire from the inside out. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what happened after that. The Northridge earthquake hit Los Angeles. Dr. Buss lent me to FEMA. I went to work for FEMA during that earthquake, and then consequently got a presidential appointment to work for the Clinton administration. And in May of '95, we did a federal takeover of the Chicago Housing Authority. We, as you all know, proceeded to tear down those buildings. Cost us $2 billion of HUD money to do so and to redevelop. And as that project finally got legs, Mayor Daley brought me over to the city of Chicago, and I became the director of the Chicago Empowerment Zone. After several years of working for Mayor Daley at the Empowerment Zone, I then went back into the private sector, and shortly thereafter, I got a call from HUD. Well, actually, I got a call from the Secretary of the Illinois Department of Human Services, Dr. Carol Adams, and became the Senior Policy Advisor and Director of Strategic Planning for the state of Illinois. Largest agency in the state, 18,000 employees, $6 billion a year budget. We were spending $13 million a day in your tax money. After leaving the Empowerment Zone, after leaving the Department of Human Services prior to Governor Blagojevich's demise, I went back to HUD and became the federally appointed receiver for the Gary, Indiana Housing Authority. And then I left there and became city manager of the city of Benton Harbor, Michigan. And as a result of a difficult family situation, my 14-year-old daughter contracted cancer, I came back to Chicago. And we spent 3 years at the University of Chicago Hospital, 2 chemos, 3 lung surgeries, and a leg amputation later. My daughter's a senior in Michigan State. Praise the Lord.
Praise God. Yes.
So, about a year ago, Commander Davis and I met, and all that government money he talks about, that's my part. As a senior policy advisor and a legislator, I've been able to assist, and I can bore you ad nauseum about all the money that's out there, but there is a ton of government money out there, from work opportunity tax credits to family self-sufficiency, HUD home ownership dollars, to HUD development dollars that we can tap into to build affordable housing, not only in Chicagoland and Will County and Cook County, but also across the state. So to make this all work, it's taking the passion of Commander Davis for serving veterans and the expertise to access public dollars, and then to get private real estate developers and contractors. Chuck Norman here was promoted by the mayor. He's not a general, he's a general contractor.
Yes,
And
got
so,
that.
so we get gentlemen like Chuck that have great expertise to help us put these projects together. And about a year ago, Mr. Jones over there and Commander Davis brought me out here and showed me something y'all call Cityscape.
All right now.
Before we go to that, go to the next slide, because I want to, as an introduction to Mr. Norman, show you some of his work. This is the Marriott Residence Inn
that Commander Davis and Captain Ron Carter have bestowed on us to do. Not only in a professional way, but in a diplomatic way, and allows us to give back to people that have takes care of us, in the armed services. I met Kevin and Ron in April of this year. Lost my father, who was a Marine veteran, in March. And it meant a lot to me to work with these guys on this initiative, because it's something that not only do I not quite have the skill set that Ron has in basketball, and I was not brought up in the military like Commander Davis was, but being that my dad was a drill instructor for the Marine Corps, I was raised like a private my whole life. So I have some understanding of the discipline that they go through. Not only are we proud of what we do as a construction company, but we also employ veterans. Greg Burke, if you could stand. He's our Director of Operations. He is a Marine veteran from 1981 to 1987. He's proudly served our country for 6 years, and also works very closely with the Iowa, Indiana, and Illinois Chicago Housing Authority, as well as the HUD chapters in Iowa, Illinois, So he brings a huge amount of experience in the exact arena that we're looking to pursue with Commander Davis and with Ron Carter. So a little bit on my background. I was a graduate of Purdue. I played baseball for Purdue University. I graduated in '93 with a degree in architectural engineering and building construction management. After that, I lived in Valparaiso, Indiana. I was born in Gary. We moved to Valparaiso, Indiana in 1980 and went to college in '89. I've been in construction my whole life. My grandfather was a carpenter from Sweden, worked at U.S. Steel for 40 years. My dad was an electrical engineer after he served in the service at U.S. Steel. So we're, Northwest Indiana, born and bred, and blue-collar, bootstrap type of mentality. So to get our hands dirty and to build and develop something that you can drive by and see that it makes an impact on someone else's life, it means a lot to me as well. So that's kind of what we do, why we do what we do. And like I said, the timing of my father's passing and meeting these two guys was divine intervention probably at some point. But I'm proud to be able to be their general contractor on their initiative in the Chicagoland markets as well as the Northwest Indiana markets potentially. So I just wanted to introduce myself and my background. Thank you for your time.
So, in closing, I guess what I really wanted to share with you guys, when we first came out here a year ago and I saw that property, cityscape and the condition that it's in.
Now the consent agenda. Oh, that's another part. Will the public residents get a chance to speak out on the agenda items before they are passed and become an ordinance? It's not available. They're sitting there reading over the agenda items of the contents that would be on this ordinance and how it would take place, what part of it is good and what part is bad. And third reading, they're going for a third reading. And we have no way, the public have no way of viewing what they are talking about. The public is sitting there like bumps on a log. Take a look and see. What do you think?
Unfinished business. Third reading ordinance amending section 2010-01, 2010-02, chapter 2010 of the Title 4 and the Part 2 of Codified Ordinance of the Village of University Park, changing the regular committee of the whole meeting dates to the Board of Trustees and adding a consented agenda. Is there a motion? So moved. Moved by trustee Brooks, second. Second by trustee Wilson. Questions, concerns, comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a number of questions.
Yes, sir.
And some concerns, and I just want to preface it by just simply saying that it really focuses on the public's right to input into what we do here as a board, since they're the ones that are affected by what we do.
Yes, sir.
The first question I had was, my concern is that if we have the committee of the whole meeting for the first Tuesday of the month, and then we don't vote on anything in that meeting because we're holding off, we're having at least a discussion, and then the second meeting of the month is where we have the consent agenda, and according to what's in here, it's not debatable. And so, if we debate something and make changes, the public then would not have a chance to provide additional input by seeing, what the final product may look like. Because it'll be a consent agenda and we'll be voting on a number of issues. So, that was a real concern of mine. If we also took and had, instead of, for whatever reason, we're not doing a lot of things on 3 readings instead of taking 3 meetings to get input from the community between the discussions as we should be doing. My concern is that it would take 3 months then to get anything passed through. It's not bad for non-critical things, but, again, my concern is that the public have a chance to provide some input. Additionally, by having a consent agenda, what we're talking about then is if we're not voting on anything in the first meeting, bills payables wouldn't be voted on. And so it means that we would be approving the bills payable then, just once a month, essentially, which I think would be a little hard on our vendors. In addition to that, and I know there's a provision in there where, and there are 2 parts to that question, if there's an item on the consent agenda that a trustee does not agree with, that if he raises an objection, then it can be brought out of the consent agenda and then and to be considered later in the agenda is what it says. And then, so my question then is, does that require a vote or approval of the board for that to happen? It didn't indicate that. Or just simply any objection by any trustee would take that out of the consent agenda. So, and again, if there's an issue with a bill, as we have in some cases seen, when new bills payable, then and we want to hold off and maybe get a little bit more background on something, that would make that whole process pretty awkward.
And lengthy.
But again, my main concern is that we wouldn't provide, by taking this approach, sufficient opportunity for the general public to provide input as to, what we're going to be doing, So I guess I don't see a real big advantage of it. So the first question that I guess from a technical standpoint I would like answered is, if a trustee objects to something on the consent agenda, will it be pulled out of the agenda for debate? Just simply on the official, okay.
Yes, to address that issue, if an item's on the, as proposed, if an item's on the consent agenda and the trustee objects and wants it pulled from the consent agenda, it will no longer be part of the consent agenda. It would be placed as you have now, it would be its own separate action item, which could be debated, and an individual vote would be taken if so moved on that item separately, and there would be debate on that.
Okay. So the way it is structured now, because there's a pro forma agenda that they have listed in what we have here, where you have new business, old business, the fact that it was part of the consent agenda, will it still comply with the Open Meetings Act?
If it's on the consent agenda, the items would
It's
still...
moved from that, right? Because then it gets moved to another part of the agenda.
Correct. Each item that would be on the consent agenda would be listed as the items are listed today on the agenda in front of you, but they would simply be listed under consent agenda. If it would be pulled, then it would just be moved down. It would still, the item would still be identified, it would be the same item, it would just be on a separate section of the agenda.
Okay. On page 4, the old D and the new paragraph E, it says a special rule, the new rule will be number 5. The general public shall be encouraged to contribute information and comment relative to matters on the agenda during the debate, but that's not really possible for something that's on the consent agenda.
Exactly.
Because Rule 3 says the items on the consent agenda will be enacted or approved by a single motion or omnibus vote. There will be no separate discussion on these agenda items unless so requested by a member of the village board, in which case that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the normal sequence of the agenda. So normally, when if we're going to vote on anything, then the public will not have the opportunity, under the way this is worded, to provide us with any input.
That's correct. And for the items under the consent agenda, there would not be debate. That's correct.
Okay. The new paragraph F, the old paragraph E, special rule, the new rule will be 6. It says the general public shall be afforded an opportunity to address the board on matters not on the agenda during the portion of the order of business and set aside for the same, subject to the same protocol as set forth in special rule number 4. And special rule number 4 says that the maker of an important complicated motion shall be prepared to furnish the same in writing to the clerk at the time moved. To facilitate this, the president may from time to time declare a brief recess. So I guess I'm just confused as to the relevance of that subject to the same protocol as set forth in special rule 4 as it relates to the general public, since that appears to be special rule is a kind of an Oscar Brown type rule. It says you got to put it in writing so we can properly consider it if it's long.
That looks like it may be Scrivener's error where that, it was the old special rule 4.
Subject to the same protocol as set forth in the special rule.
Yeah, but when you read Rule 4, it relates to having a complicated amendment, I guess, to an ordinance, be put in writing and submitted to the clerk.
Correct. I guess when I say Scrivener's error, it should read special rule 5. As amended as compared to special rule 4.
Right, just a scratch off, when they do this on a computer, you see look at it, that's what he's saying, it's a script.
Okay, so that needs to be amended.
That would have to be amended to say special rule 5.
Now, on this page 5, the old paragraph G, paragraph H, special rule 8, it says, no vote of the board shall be reconsidered or rescinded at a special meeting unless there are present at the special meeting as many trustees as were present when the vote was taken. Now, that to me says that preempts Robert's Rules of Orders, which allows us to, the prevailing party to rescind a vote or to have it recalled to be voted on. Again, we've done that a couple of times. So I'm just wondering if that is really something that, should be in here. And then essentially, and we've had this happen also, so if we take a vote and somebody doesn't agree, if we want to do a reconsideration, and somebody walks out, whether, in protest or because they have other things to do or they're ill or whatever, then you can't take you can't take a vote on it. And if you don't take a vote on it, you can't do it the next meeting, because if you want to do some reconsideration.
That also affect when you have like a lack of quorum, would that be relevant to that as well?
No, you have to have a quorum and you need to have a,
But like you're saying, if they walk out there and they have lack of quorum, is that the same?
no.
Or
You can still have a quorum.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If there's a lack of a quorum, you can't.
No, trustee Pay now, I'm sorry, trustee Pay, I mean, when you're saying if they get up and walk out and then they have no vote, it shall be considered reconciled in a special meeting unless they are present at the special meeting and the trustees were present within the vote was taken.
Right.
That's
So,
what you mean.
right, exactly. So if we have 6 trustees and the mayor present, somebody walks out, you can't do a reconsideration. That's what that says to me. And that to me says that supersedes Robert's Rules of Order, for which we're conducting the meetings by.
And that special rule was not amended, this is the special rule that's been in place, or is currently in place, actually, it's just called special rules then.
Gotta make it right, you got a lot of things in place that ain't right, so.
Right, I'm just,
So because it is here, it should be correct.
Wait, I have a question before you talk about changing it. So when you usually rescind a motion or a vote, shouldn't the people who made the original vote be there to rescind it? So wouldn't that be the same thing? The 6 people?
But that's not what this says. It says that you have to have the same number of people there as when the vote was taken. So if a person leaves, then you cannot do reconsideration.
That's,
Yeah,
You finished, trustee Anthony?
Trustee O'Malley, I think what the rule is saying is, if you take a vote at a regular meeting, even though it's considered a regular meeting here, so,
Special meeting.
yes, a special meeting, you can't rescind it at a special meeting unless the number of people that were at the meeting where the vote took place. So I'll use this as an example, say we have this regular meeting and we pass something we don't like, we want to pass a motion to rescind. Oh, no, you want to do a motion to rescind, only 4 people come to the special meeting. Since all of us were here for this vote, you can't take their action at the special meeting because the number of trustees that voted aren't here, aren't at the special meeting where you make that motion. It has to be at a regular board meeting.
That's not how this reads. It says, no vote of the board shall be reconsidered or rescinded at a special meeting unless there are present at the special meeting as many trustees as were present when the vote was taken. Right.
And that's what's currently on the record.
Right.
Well, but it needs to be changed.
It needs to be corrected.
One final thing, I don't want to take all the time.
You gotta do it right.
The next paragraph.
You gotta do it right.
Next rule, special rule, which will be the new
Doesn't
9,
matter.
old paragraph H,
What time?
paragraph I, will be the new
Damn thing.
paragraph. It says, any person at a public meeting is permitted to use portable silent tape recorder at such meeting, provided that its operation does not interfere with the overall decorum and proceeding of the meeting. Well, why is it only a tape recorder listed? I mean, everybody videotapes now, and that's
Again, this is an old
allowed.
ordinance. It's an old
Well,
ordinance.
but we're scheduled to vote on this, and if it's not right,
If you don't
we
vote
need
on
to change
it,
it. So,
you
know,
gotta
I would
correct
make
it
a motion
right.
to table
You
it.
can't do this already.
You gotta do it right.
No, I would just make a motion, then, Mayor, just to table this until we can get these corrected.
Okay,
Yes, thank God.
no problem.
All right, go ahead.
Is there a motion?
Go second.
There was. There's a second, yeah, Yeah, I see a second.
I didn't second.
No,
Because I actually have a
motion,
question.
and Wilson second. Yes, it was a second, Wilson did second. Okay, so we will take, roll call on vote to table this motion. Oh, no, this was the motion originally. Who seconded the table?
Who made the motion?
Milton Payton.
And the second or what?
I actually had a question.
You know, you can't even come over with you.
Okay, what's the second?
Madam Mayor, I would withdraw my motion
Okay.
to table until Oscar Brown, Trustee Oscar Brown has a chance.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
All right, my question is in regards to the committee as a whole meeting. There's no set agenda or no rule for that, so the agenda could be set however the mayor or a mayor sees fit for the business university park. So you could put like an old business and a new business under the committee as a whole and still conduct business for the business university park.
Okay.
That's my question.
I thought,
I don't see anything restricting, so I'm assuming that you can.
There's,
Trustee, I'm sorry, clerk. Clerk wants to say
I thought that was the intent, we would present a proposed agenda for public input,
Right,
just for discussion.
Right.
That's what I understood this whole,
yes, and that was the
all
purpose.
this was for,
Yes.
to allow the public their chance to make their comments at the committee meeting of the whole without any action being taken. And that agenda would be amended or adjusted before it comes forward to our action meeting.
Right.
That's the way I understood it.
Yeah, but there's nothing to stop us if we needed to take an action say, the second meeting. I'm not sure which one's gonna be a regular meeting, which one's gonna be committee of the whole.
No.
So there's nothing to stop us from putting something
first-
on an agenda
Right, the first one
in
would
a
be,
committee of the whole meeting.
the
We
first
have
one
to
would
do
be,
a special meeting. We could do the committee of the whole and a special meeting with those agenda items as I understand for that first meeting.
It was just my understanding that the whole purpose of this was to expedite the meetings.
yes,
And, you know, I guess, I just want to make sure the public has sufficient opportunity to provide input, because sometimes we have a lot of dialogue, and sometimes we have to send some things back several times. So if we do that, and they don't have a chance to see it, because they don't have a chance to see it before the regular board meeting where there's a consent agenda, then, and it doesn't provide, it specifically says there should be no discussion, then, you know, they don't have a chance to provide additional input since they hadn't, you know, they hadn't seen it. So
Possibly to address that, not every item has to be under the consent agenda for the regular meeting. You can have items under the consent agenda, but also still have items listed as action items as they are done now for debate and for discussion at the regular meeting. Not every item has to be placed under the consent agenda. It's just items where it seems like there'll be a consent so that only one vote would need to be taken as to all those items within that portion of the agenda. I don't know if that answers your question.
and but let me, Trustee Wilson?
So, just for my clarification, at the first meeting,
Right.
that's where all the agenda items will be for open discussion
Yes.
from the board and the residents.
Right.
So, Trustee Payton, that's where they would have their input.
Right.
And then the action meeting would vote on it if the board all agreed on the consent agenda. But they would have input at the first meeting when the
Right.
board has open discussion.
yeah, I know, my thing, Trustee Wilson, is that they should have the opportunity to see the final product before we vote on it. You know, because again, you know, we have,
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. What would happen at the consent agenda, it will be open to the public. They will discuss it thoroughly. Everyone will talk about it. We'll have input back and forth, and then we'll say, okay, fine, agreeable. And then at the final meeting, where it was consent agenda, those things would have been discussed. Those things would have been spoken about and agreed upon, and then we'll just go through. But before that, it'll be open to the public. They'll answer the questions, they'll have input, we'll have input, we'll discuss it, talk, questions, whatever, and then, okay, it's good to go. And you finalize it, and you put it on the next agenda, we just go bam, 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 because it's already been discussed, questioned, and asked.
What if you change something? I'm sorry, what if you have changed something? And it's just as he said, I don't get to see the whole thing as, oh yes, okay, we're gonna amend this, we're gonna change this. How do I, as a public, get to see this revision?
Okay, I got you, Ms. Truss. You're right, and we'll be discussing it. And so we'll have a final understanding of it. They said, okay, sure, we're gonna change that, just like you said, to change it to move out tape recorders and put all video. So it will be understood, concluded, and finalized, and say, okay, we all agree, this will be the finalization, right there at the discussion. Clerk D. Jones, can you add to that as well?
Wanted to
There you go. I heard it.
Just for clarity, nothing in this proposed ordinance takes away the public's right to speak at either meeting. If you look on the agenda there, on the proposed, even with the consent agenda, there is a general public. So they would still have their opportunity. This is, as I'm understanding it. So the public would still be included at either meeting. However, the first meeting would allow the public to give their input, and the board take it, consider it, and if there are changes, the agenda would still be posted prior to, with every item, whereas on here it says unfinished business, new business on the consent agenda. Each of the these items would be listed, same as they're listed now on the agenda. It's just that one vote to approve could be a collective number. However, before that's done, any of those items could be pulled without a reason by any member of the board.
Clerk Jones, on page 4, paragraph C, special rule 3,
Right.
specifically says, items on the consent agenda will be enacted or approved by a single motion or omnibus vote. There will be no separate discussion on these agenda items unless so requested by a member of the village board. That doesn't mean that the public
Go
can,
on, keep reading it.
Because you
in which case the item will be removed
right.
from the consent agenda. But that's for us, not necessarily the public, to be able to provide input on the final item.
Keep going.
We remove from the consent agenda and consider in the normal sequence of the agenda. There will be no separate discussion on these agenda items unless so requested by a member of the village board.
Right now, do residents have discussion after they have their comments at the beginning of the meeting?
Do that.
So you're saying like while we have a discussion right now?
Let me answer your question, your comment. First of all, the existing rules do provide for the general public to speak on individual items. We just have not done that. That's the first thing. So the second thing is, yeah, it's understanding rules.
It's under
It's understanding
Robert's
rules.
standing
We just have
rules and
not done
Robert's
that.
rules. You have not done
Okay.
it.
Then it'll be the same as we've been doing. If somebody
This
wants
changes
to.
that. It says here, there will be no separate discussion on these agenda items unless so requested by a member of the village board.
Okay, why don't we just
Right.
okay. Go ahead, clerk.
It's just to ask the question that might make it easier. When this was presented for first, second, and third reading, and Trustee Payton mentioned the consent agenda then because it wasn't added. Would the board consider as part of, even if it's tabled, to bring it back without the consent agenda and let's get the board and the public on board with the change as we're proposing it, and then see how that works, and then bring it back with the consent agenda?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm not asking, let's not do this.
Okay.
I just want to, when we have
I hear what you're saying.
have the final product, let's have it
Right.
right.
Back.
Okay.
Yeah, try
Not a
to
problem.
the consent agenda,
Okay.
but with everything.
All right.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Madam Mayor, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to make sure that the public, public has an opportunity, every opportunity it can, to weigh in. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I beg your pardon?
Mayor, I would like to then to make a motion to table this until we get the language and final product done.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustee Williams? Trustee Wilson? No. Trustee Brooks?
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Both sides.
Trustee Payton? Trustee Brown? And Mayor Cummings?
Aye.
Oh, now they come to the overnight parking issue. Now this one is the first reading, but this is not the first time they've tried to do this. Will the board ever get it right? The overnight parking correct, and will it be legal? You take a look. What do you think? Remember, the public needs to weigh in on this since it will affect you.
Okay. New business. First reading, ordinance amending section 440-09 of chapter 440 of Title 8 of Part 4 of the Codified Ordinance of the Village University Park prohibiting overnight parking in the streets without a permit. Is there a motion? First reading. Moved by trustee Brooks, second by trustee Oscar Brown. Question, comment, question? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, trustee Wilson and trustee Oscar Brown.
That was trustee Williams.
Oh, Williams, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to find out, you're saying that they need a permit? Now, years ago, when this order was written, and it should be in our archive, that it still should be there. I'm pretty sure you should know that. Back in the day, there was no parking, especially on Bundy, because it's so narrow. It's dangerous. It's dangerous with the school buses, with the kids getting in and off that bus. You cannot get by there. You just like this. If you put your hands out on either side, you can shake the hands of the persons in another car. The school buses are there, especially in the wintertime. You can't even go down the streets. There's never been no parking. The only time that there was parking there was when a person was having a party and they let the people, come in and they park, but they had to be gone by 2:30 in the morning. And if they were spending the night, they had to be out. I think it was like 6 o'clock. I'm not really sure, but this was back in 1972. What's happening now is too close. Cars are getting too dangerous with our kids in the school buses, and the cars are just driving past.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, before we were elected, wasn't the ordinance or there was the overnight parking lifted?
Yes.
That's why we...
Yes, it was.
Okay, and this should be the first step of regulating that parking then. Trustee Williams.
Just a second, hold on.
So let's answer this. So this has been an issue I've been tackling since I've been the chief of police, since I got here in 2015. Previous chief Bradley brought before the board a change of the parking regulations in which there was restricted street parking. That was changed in 2014 before the board of trustees, and they changed the parking regulation to no parking on the same side of the street with a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet. Okay? The police department tried their best to enforce that ordinance. In late 2016 or mid-2016, that ordinance was challenged by various residents that were written that ordinance, and an administrative law judge stated that there's no way that the police department can measure 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant and be able to make that determination while actually using measuring tape to go out there and to measure it. Secondly, when the ordinance was enacted in 2014, the village never brought the proper signage to place on the streets to enforce that change in the ordinance. Okay? So this change that you are seeing today is a concern that many residents have called me about parking, overnight parking. Again, this is just the first reading of a proposed ordinance and trying to revamp the entire overnight parking situation within University Park, as well as being creative and adding different rules. I'm not opposed to restricting parking at all in Vernon. This is why we're asking for board input. If there are streets where parking needs to be prohibited, period, overnight or not, please let us know those streets, and we will add them accordingly and we'll look into those accordingly.
Thank you.
Also, after this first reading is done, I will go to the Director of Public Works and the Fire Chief to get additional input. This is why it's a strictly first reading, so the board can answer the required questions and provide input so this can be reshaped and revamped.
Thank you. Trustee Oscar.
To echo the sentiments of both my colleagues and our interim village manager, I think I like what's been written so far. I think it's a very good attempt. There are some changes I'd like to see made in regards to the overnight portion of the parking regulations. In particular, I think maybe the first one ought to be free. The second one is a charge, and then if you want a third one, it's an additional charge. So it graduated from first to second to third. Also, there should be other parking regulations, as our interim manager mentioned. When I first got assigned this, we were worried about parking on Burnham and Sand. That was specifically mentioned, and there might have been other streets as well. Also, with the construction going on Blackhawk, And Sandra, we might want to look into if there's a way automatic changes in the regulations when we're doing road work on major streets where a bus is going to come out, or along a bus route. So those would be some additional things that we should look into and add for the second reading. Also, Madam Mayor, I ask that you make the second reading only for the next meeting, and then the third reading, so make it a true 1, 2, 3 rather than 1 and 2.
And that's basically what the plan is.
And that is Trustee Oscar Brown project.
No, it's
Oh, and Trustee Wood, they're working together.
That was my project.
Okay, he said it was his too. Okay, love on here. All right.
Shit, it doesn't make a difference
Couple
whose
questions.
project it is, get your damn thing done.
I like the children.
So am I understanding correctly
Just get the
that
damn thing done.
a resident can purchase a overnight parking permit for the year?
So this is the issue that the police department's been running into. So overnight parking is a police department responsibility. So every night we get several requests for overnight parking. Several nights it's the same vehicles every night. They call East County every night saying we're doing parking overnight. What we've discovered is the ordinance never put into place a way to regulate people that do regular overnight parking. There's nothing saying that, okay, after the third time you request overnight parking, you're charged something or you're prohibited to do something. I will tell you that the individuals that park on the street using overnight parking is a very small percentage of the residents in our village. What we're proposing is to prevent the tracking mechanism of somebody requesting overnight parking several times. If a resident does not have room in their driveway, which their average driveway can fit 4 vehicles, if there's a 6th, 7th, or 8th vehicle or 9th vehicle, that optionally, not mandatory, but by option, they can purchase a yearly overnight parking permit that is transferable per vehicle. So it's not a permit that sticks in the car permanently. It's a permit that the resident or homeowner maintains in their home. And if they have somebody parking overnight and they cannot fit in their driveway, they basically place this permit inside the vehicle. The police department sees it, the citation is not written. Compared to us saying, and going back to how things were in the past, where my officers go out and write about 70 overnight parking tickets, and I have about 25 residents calling me the next day saying, hey, I had somebody staying here, we didn't know, we didn't call, and there was a lot of confusion. And then some of those tickets, we either are dismissed at the administrative review process when it comes to the third Wednesday of the month, or we're dealing with other complications. So what I'm trying to do is simplify the process so the police department is not inundated with phone calls at night requesting permission for overnight parking from these same people every day.
I don't have a problem with that. I noticed that we hadn't established what that cost would be. I'd like to see what the recommendation would be if that's. So I understand clearly what the issue is now. There are a couple of grammatical things here, but I'll just give that to the clerk. The other thing was the issuance of these permits, because the way this is written is that you can only get it at during business hours at Village Hall. And, right now, Village Hall is only open, Monday through noon on Thursday. Right. So sometimes, I know this has happened with me, the people that are now coming late, they're going to decide they're going to stay, and we would call,
So
this would very rarely happen. I just want to point that out. But in my opinion, we should be able to, or whoever should be able to also maybe go to the police station and get a permit if it's just for an overnight deal rather than an annual parking thing.
Understood. So how we're looking at that, first, as far as the fee structure for overnight parking and the implementation, this would not be, if this ordinance is passed at third reading, this would not be an immediate implementation. We're actually looking at a 1-year implementation process. So what the 1-year implementation process does,
It will take a year, you mean?
so it'll take a year to implement the fee-based portion of the ordinance, not the inaction of the ordinance itself, but just the fee-based portion of the ordinance. Number one, because of our difficulties in putting information out to the residents, we wanted to give residents with enough leeway and understanding and time and questions before this is done. And the issuance of those permits will be done at the same time annually during the time village stickers are purchased. And each home would be eligible to purchase up to 4 on an optional basis of those permits.
4 permanent.
Just a second, Chuck, excuse me.
Could we look into the ability for them to purchase their parking permits online, even if it's, if it's just a single overnight thing?
That's
they
no
can,
problem.
Yeah, they can purchase it online, print something out, stick it in their window.
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
Trustee Wilson.
So have you compared this version here to neighboring towns or other villages?
Our attorney has.
What I found in different places, it's done differently, no matter which municipality you're looking at. Some places do it where if you want an overnight parking permit, you have to get it for one night, and as he stated, you can get 3 within a year, I think is your limit. Other places do it on a monthly basis. In Oak Park, one municipality that has overnight parking permits, the fee schedule is broken down based upon where you are at in the village. It's different fees depending where you're at. So the fee structure is a little different no matter where you go, but we're going to try to see if we can put a survey together of different fees.
Which is why the fee section is blank for the first reading, because we wanted to get the input from the board.
Well, I wasn't really concerned about the fee structure because it's blank. I mean the yearly permit. So if you offer up to 4 permits per house per year, it looks like it's defeating the purpose.
No, trustee. So when I say 4 permits, these are not permits assigned permanently to whoever you give them to. These are permits that you issue to an overnight guest. At the end of their stay, you get them back.
I thought you said we allow people to get one for a year.
No, so what we allow each is looked at and to be tweaked is each household can purchase 4 for 4 vehicles. For 4 vehicles, okay? When you have an overnight visitor, you give them the permit, it's placed in the vehicle. Upon them leaving, they give it to you back. It belongs to the household, not to the vehicle of your visitor.
Right, so my question is though, so if you have too many cars to fit in your driveway and your garage, and you buy these 4 permits, and they're good for a year, somebody can park there every night, that same vehicle, for a year. 4 vehicles, 4 vehicles every night, if they had 4 people outside. 4, you get what I'm saying?
Right.
4 people can stay on the street every night.
So you're asking the number to be reduced? I'm
I
just
was
trying to understand.
is that what
It can be 4, it's 3 listed now, it can be 4, it can be 2. If the board wants to look at reducing that number can be reduced.
I'm sorry, just a second. Ms. Trust, Ms. Wayne, Ms. everybody, go ahead, Ms. Trust.
Perhaps this ordinance may also contain some kind of discretion for the police department, because there are instances when people are having maybe some construction done on their house and some things have to be parked on the street.
Blacktop in the driveway or something.
Blacktop in your driveway, or I was having some extensive work done in my house that things had to be parked on the street. But I'm a business person, but I do not put my business trucks on the streets and trailers as some people do. But I have called when I have guests, and I do, several of us do have out-of-town children who visit us who may be away at college, and they visit quite often or whatever. And I have to use my neighbor's, I've made things by saying, can my son park his car or whatever there, but that can happen. And I've had to call in to EastCom or whatever it is on several occasions. But
I mean, that's the purpose of the...
But you got to give the police department, I think, a little discretion there. You think so?
Yeah, I'm not, and I'm not opposed to that. This is why this is the first reading.
This is
I'm
the
not
first
opposed
reading
to
that
that being implanted and inserted for discretion for constructional projects and other things. So I appreciate that input.
And another thing, I would have been more prepared to address this had I had this kind of thing written out. There's nowhere in here that tells me what that is. I don't have what you guys have. You understand that? So I cannot address it. So when you do something, first, second, and third reading is unfair to the public.
It's one reading. It's only one reading. Okay, Strauss.
Well, you can't do that.
Okay, my question, Mayor, is to Chief. Is there any consideration or monitoring being done for perhaps that caller that may call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the event that there may be disabled and or abandoned vehicles in that driveway that creates one of those 1, 2, 3, or 4 vehicles?
Right.
And the streets only,
Some
not the
streets have
driveway.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can take care of you on it.
So, to answer your question, Ms. Stroud, yes, that is monitored. But when these calls come in, these calls are coming in to our midnight watch committee. So we typically have to use kind of quick discretion. We're acknowledging, okay, it's okay to park there or not, to park on those streets. Now, in happenstance, I do go back and look the next day or 2 days later and see who's requesting this, and we do kind of do drive-bys and stuff. And I don't know if residents have noticed in some areas where residents have brought up disabled vehicles being in driveways, we have pursued that, ticketed those vehicles and told those vehicles out of the driveway. But again, we don't know if a vehicle is disabled in a driveway. Unless the vehicle's on all flats and all windows are broken out on the car, we're not going to have any type of knowledge base of knowing that the vehicle is disabled in the driveway.
I'm just on the car. This way.
I don't agree with you. I think when my kids come to visit me, I don't think I should pay for them. If they come, I have girls, they travel, they come in cars, I have to pay for them to park on the streets.
Okay.
I have no room for them in my driveway.
I understand. So then what we run into option is when there's snow on the ground and Public Works needs to come through and plow snow, then we subject vehicles to be stuck in or plowed in to driveways. If there are certain streets where emergency vehicles, where I've received calls from the fire chief that the large fire engine or fire truck, ladder truck cannot get down the street when they have an emergency situation where they need additional manpower personnel on various streets. One of those streets are in your area where we cannot get emergency apparatus on streets when vehicles are parked on both sides of the street. So now we have to look at two things. You either want to look at the public safety aspect of getting emergency equipment down your street, or getting snow plowed and regulating that, or we go ahead and say we go ahead and block off the street and an emergency situation happens. The fire department has full ability to do whatever they need to get it done. So again, I understand where you're coming from.
We have been going to park on one side. You can't park on both sides.
Well,
We have that ordinance already.
well, there are certain, and that is a part of this ordinance here. That is a part of this ordinance as well.
Right.
So this revision is a revision of the entire section of that ordinance. Okay? In the summertime, we run into this situation more times than not, where we have streets that are blocked off, where we cannot get emergency equipment, even with one car parked on one side of the street. Okay? So here's the thing. We want to work with the residents. I'm not trying to make it a burden for the residents, but there are a lot of liability issues that have to be addressed in regards to public safety in dealing with these street parking situations. So on one hand, we can do everything we can to make the residents happy, and I don't have a problem doing that. But understand that it runs a risk for the fire chief and public works director saying they cannot get equipment down the street. And then now we end up having to knock on doors, hope you open your door, do emergency relocation of vehicles where we're towing your vehicle off the street and relocate it to somewhere else. So those things have to be looked into as well.
Olmsted, for instance.
So,
Terrible problem.
So it is the first reading. I'm sorry. So we can talk about this all night. It's 9:30.
Yeah.
So anybody want to add something?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to just follow up on Trustee Williams' comment about the school buses and that. Because obviously this doesn't pertain to school children. But that is a real valid issue. So I would support anything that would keep cars from being parked on bus routes
Exactly.
during the day, especially,
Yeah, that is a
when
problem.
those conditions could
Regular
could
cars.
be hazardous to the children.
That,
In fact, that was one of the reasons why the parking ban was changed, because people would park their cars in their driveway and they would block the sidewalk. And in the wintertime, the kids have to walk out in the street
right.
in order to get around those cars, you know, so that was part of the rationale before.
Okay, so, I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to answer, Chief, back in the day, in the 70s, they towed the cars. They didn't knock on nobody's door. They towed the cars. You know why? Because it was dangerous to our kids, just like Mr. Payton just.
And you know, and I would tell you, that's an excellent idea. Myself and the Public Works Director sat down and talked about it extensively with the acting village manager last year, and we felt towing the cars will be based on what the village is dealing with currently, that will put an undue burden on our residents to charge them a $200 and some odd tow fee to tow the vehicles off the street. Again, we have to balance this out. We have to look at the good of the residents, towing their vehicles and making them pay $200+ plus a tow release from the police department to move their vehicle or change parking regulations. So, like I said, this is a debatable subject all night long. Again, this is just the first reading, and we'll make all the tweaks we need to make.
I understand, but if they know these rules, it won't happen.
Trustee,
I beg your
regardless of how many rules that you implement, you're still going to have it happen, and you're going to still feel the residents that's going to come to the police department and come to the board members in regards to these matters. So if you guys are prepared for that, we'll do what we need to do.
Madam Mayor, yes. Can I close out by saying, soon as, actually, we'll have a cable studio coming up, but as far as the ticket issuing in a 2 to 6, there are a lot of towns that do it. Actually, number one, it is a safety issue. An officer will say, for Country Club Hills, first of all, 2 to 6, we always get, at 2 a.m., we wait until about 2:15, 2:30. Whatever person did not call dispatch, we get out there and we get to writing. 6 o'clock, you're free to do whatever you want to do. But it is a safety issue. I will say, you just don't know how many burglaries happen, right, Chief? If a car is out there, there are residents who do have cars that are in a state of disrepair in a driveway. If those cars are out there, Madam Mayor, they should be told that the police department should follow the protocol, and which they have, and just do their job. But I, like everyone else, enjoy the 2 to 6 rule, because number one, if someone is on your street, they should belong. When it comes down to the permit itself, I do have kids in college. I do agree, the first one should be free, then there should be a fee for the next one, but I do recommend there be more stickers, because when you start handing something out with paper, when the officers ride by, when we drive by with the spotlight, you know, you can't really see, just have it above the village sticker. I think that would solve a lot of issues. We did it before, I don't see what's wrong with it now.
All right, so we'll bring this back. This is the first reading, and we'll tweak it, comment on it. Everyone will have something to say, okay? Roll call. For first reading, so we can start adding to it, taking away from it, and modifying it. Okay? But we want to start putting it in order.
Give the public a chance.
Trustee Williams.
Both sides.
Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Cotton.
Aye, thank you. Very healthy discussion. First, second, and third reading ordinance authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement by and between the Village of University Park, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois, and Little Bernie Major Crime Task Force for membership in the task force. Is there a motion? Moved by Trustee Wilson, second. Second by Trustee Brooks. Questions, concerns, comments? Fantastic. Roll call.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Aye.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Cotton.
Aye, thank you.
Madam Mayor, that's ordinance 2017-20.
Dash 20?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. F2C, resolution of the Village of University Park, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois, authorizing the approval of execution of business signature cards and related bank documents with Midland State Bank. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Brooks, second.
Second.
Second by trustee, Payton. Questions, concerns, comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Williams. Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Brooks.
Both sides.
Trustee McMullen.
Both sides.
Trustee Payton.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
And Mayor Covington. Mayor Covington.
Aye.
Madam Mayor, that's resolution R 2017-13.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, now. They come to the trees. Trees, trees, trees. After much fighting with the trustee Wilson, they finally got it passed. And the presentation earlier by the other resident was great. But most of the people know that because it's the same thing that's on the computer. You can look it up. And Chicago's been going through this. It's all over the news almost every other day about the ash borer beetle. But it has come to a safety hazard here in University Park, especially for the students who are walking to school. Safety is a big issue for our children and for us. As we can see on television, when a storm comes and blow them over and they're in danger of falling on our homes and our cars and whatever. It has fallen on Black Hawk on someone's car. Thank God for Miss Millie Morgan, who's been fighting this issue. What do you think about our safety? Take a look.
The resolution of the Village of University Parkville and Cook County, Illinois, authorizing the execution of an agreement by the and between Ed Green, DP Green Tree Service, and Village of University Park for removal of the trees. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We haven't got the question yet. Moved by trustee Brooks, second. Second by trustee McMullen. Questions, concerns, and I have a comment as well. Questions. Who's the person with it? Williams?
Williams.
I just wanted to know, how much are we gonna be paying for these trees? Cause
It's right in here.
I didn't see it.
15,000
For 50 trees.
for 50 trees. 15,000 for 50 trees.
Which trees?
The one.
Like
Okay.
on the list that, Public Works.
Page.
Just a second. Did you answer?
We identified 192 trees
Okay.
in the village of University Park.
Okay.
So from this ordinance, we're going to take the worst 50 and start there. Abbott, Amherst, Sierra Court, Monterey. That's the first one.
Okay. And those are the most hazardous?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a concern and a little, okay. I know we had 3 bids. Oh, okay, are they attachments here? Because I only see one.
So,
I did.
Pardon?
You take that bids.
okay.
My question and concern, I need the 3 bids. I need to see 3 bids, first of all. You know, that's the consensus of the board. They always like to see that. But I'm a little disturbed for the simple reason, Mr. We are always, and everybody battles this constantly, why don't we use the people that we have on file as a bid?
On files as a bid.
People that are in, we have several landscaping companies in University Park. And did they bid? Were they requested first? Did they put in a bid?
Most of the landscaping companies in our area, man, don't have the equipment to go up 100 feet up in the air to take out the trees. So we have to use a commercial company.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but how do you, I mean, I think that's a bit of a responsibility to take upon yourself. If you give them the bid, maybe they might want to rent the equipment. But one person, and I did ask, he asked about, he heard about this, Mr. PTO, the person that did our landscaping when we had, fundings was low, and he did our whole village for free for a year. He said he didn't know about this, and he has the equipment.
Well, he was with me today, so
Okay, what did he say?
he told, on the tree remark, his truck goes 45 feet in the air. The village's truck only goes 20 feet in the air. Majority of our trees are 75 to 100 feet in the air. So we have to go out commercially. We need stump grinding. We need all of those things done. With the ash trees, these trees are supposed to be burnt. They need to be hauled away from the village. They need to be burned. We need to go professional company. Not saying he's not professional, but we need to go with a company that can get the trees out, the 50 trees, right away.
I understand. I was just questioning because we have another one as well.
Also with him cutting grass, spraying our ball fields, spraying our parks, that is what he's doing for us now. These 50 trees should be gone before the end of the month. We have to do it before the ground starts to freeze, the ground starts to.
Okay, that was a concern. I didn't see 3 bids, but we should see even professionals. We should see 3 bids.
Okay, so first, just to really clarify this is an emergency resolution to cut down 50 trees that are near schools and parks, that are hazardous, that are potentially going to fall down this winter. Okay?
Or a bad storm.
Or a bad storm, okay? This is why the resolution is capped at 50 trees. This is why the resolution says no, not to exceed $15,000. This is for an emergent basis to deal with those trees in the school areas where students play, in the park areas where we have parks where those trees exist. Once we get to 50 trees and $15,000 not to exceed, there will be a professional bid process with 3 bids. And I will tell you, the village attorney was submitted 2 bids, okay? The timeliness to get this on the agenda, to get it addressed, by the time we need to get the company out to schedule them to come out to cut trees, we were able to get 2. We didn't get 3. And we did not do a bid process, and we did not do a sealed bid process, okay? This information was inquired to the village clerk as well as the village attorney based on an emergent matter of these trees being cut down. That's why it's 50 trees, not to exceed $15,000. Anything beyond that will be done through a sealed bid process approved by the board.
Yes.
I just want to say that this is a steal. Anybody ever wouldn't got a quote on having a tree taken down? A tree costs you a couple $1,000, a big tree to take down.
Exactly.
Get 50 trees for $15,000, that's an absolute steal.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
With stump grind.
Trustee Wilson.
I know it's an emergency. We're not following our process because we're saying it's an emergency. Did we get a professional like Miss, I don't know, unless Gary is an arborist or a professional when it comes to trees and cutting them down? Like Miss Katrina Johnson. Did we get a specialist to determine which 50 trees are the most dangerous? Number 1, how was that decided? Okay. Number 2, I would like to see the quotes from the 2 companies. We're supposed to have 3. We don't have any in front of us. All we have, if I can finish, all we have is this piece of paper that I cannot read.
Okay.
That's to me. I know it's an emergency.
Right.
Trustee, I have all 3 original copies with me. What you have, I'm not sure. You received 2.
No, just 1. But
we have one that is unreadable.
Oh,
it's very vague.
And we're supposed to have, no, it's unreadable. I can't read it. So I know it's an emergency. Residents, I know trees. My job is environmental health and safety. But what I want this board to start, we have to follow a process. And the process is 3 bids. We got 2. The board doesn't have any. We have a sheet of paper in front of us that says 15,000. I can read that part at the bottom, but I can't read anything else. And we can't continue to do this.
And trustee, just for clarification, I'm aware of the 3 bid process. We're aware. We submitted documentation. The clerk was, we talked to Clerk D. Jones in regards to it as far as inquiry. She can state what she stated, or whatever. We provided to the attorney. Again, this is why this resolution is based on an emergency basis, limited to 50 trees, not to exceed $15,000. So we won't have an open blanketed situation where you just have a whole bunch of trees being cut down willy-nilly without any control.
Was a specialist used to determine 50?
A specialist did not come about until after this was already in process.
So no specialist was used to determine. Ms. Katrina Johnson was here. And
Yes, he has.
The tree company is the licensed arborist. I have 3 bids.
Okay, well share it with the board.
No, when this came about, only 2 were in, so the 2 were submitted. So if you only have 1, I know 2 were submitted. So the arborist drove around town, just as I did with Ms. Johnson. We looked at the same trees.
Okay.
Black Hawk, right by the school, those trees on Amherst, those trees on Hickok. They all determined those are the first 50 trees that need to be taken out of here.
Okay.
Okay.
But, okay. Go ahead.
Wait, my question is not satisfied.
No.
You have an arborist. We do not have that documentation in front of us. We do not have the 2 quotes. We're supposed to get 3. We didn't, but the board does not have 2. So the board is voting on it. The board needs to see the information.
And
if you have it,
I don't know where the copies that I gave.
if you have it, let's share it. But
I have my copy.
well, let's see it. Just we can pass it down.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that works. Because what is this amount here? It says, because it looked like it was padded over, cut over here. What is this? Is this 12,000 or 2,000 or? Right, looks like somebody changed some figures. Okay.
see, I have a question.
It's a limit on the truck.
It's 9:30, you the one that told them.
I placed that in on the resolution.
I fell for this when we did the trucks. It's not falling for it.
I don't see any. Where it is?
Where's the second quote? Let her see it. Trustee wants to see it. Did you guys see it?
Counsel.
Yes.
When this was transmitted over to you, how many quotes were attached to the request, based on your knowledge?
There were 2. There was one from Green Tree Service.
Okay.
I think the other was Smitty's Tree Service.
Okay, I just want to clarify that we did not just send over 1 quote. I just want to clarify.
Madam Mayor, I would just like to say that the director indicated that we have 192 trees. These are the first 50 in a real critical routes that affect our children. And while I'm one that's big on process, except in times that there's emergency, because I'm just here to tell you, if a branch falls off a tree and hits a child after this debate, $15,000 is not even going to pay our legal fees. And then we got another 142 trees that we can act a little differently on. We're trying to get more documentation for those that need it.
And hopefully we can make some phone calls tomorrow.
Oh, we come to the item on the agenda, bills payable. Oh, was this a big mess. The dog did not eat Trustee Wilson's board package this time. Or she has it.
Bills payable. Okay. Attached for your approval and listing of critical general operating expenses from the Village of University Park that occurred on August 4th, 2017 through September 12th, 2017. General fund amount total $559,258,559,559.15. Road and Bridge Fund, $7,610.88. Town Center, $6,163.96. Capital Funds, $967.70. IRH Development, $258,268. Totaling $561,569.69. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Brooks, second. Second by trustee McMullen. Questions, concerns, comments? Yes, sir. Trustee Brown. And then,
I had a couple of questions on page 7.
check number.
There is not a check number, so.
Okay, page 7.
Invoice approval list, page 7.
Just a second.
Start there.
Page 7. Just 1 second.
You got oil and gas for 8,000, and then the electric bill for even 6,000.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Employee demo insurance. Wait a minute. Ed, yes, $6,000. Yes, sir.
Oil and gas is for fuel, for police cars, public works vehicles, so actual fuel for vehicles.
What was the equipment you brought from Puerto Rico Corporation?
Oh, so, yeah, so, okay, so as a prelude to this, so the police department received a $30,000 technology grant, okay? The grant covers for a new evidence system, new tasers for the police officers, and new server and new equipment for the police department. The $10,000 payment for Porter is covered by the grant, which will be reimbursed to the village immediately. Once that check clears, it'll go over to the Cook County Department of Homeland Security, and they will immediately cut a check over to reimburse the village. The same for the check for Taser for $5,000 and some odd dollars. That will be an immediate reimbursement. Taser, or they changed the name. I have to look here. But it's a amount for purchasing tasers for the police department. Our tasers are about 8 years old and out of life cycle.
I guess we want to know where. We looking at bills payable, we need to know which ones.
Right here.
I see
So the first one's for Porter.
See Porter.
The second one is for, I have to look at.
Axon Enterprise?
There you go. Axon Enterprises. And then you're going to see a $4,600.50 expenditure for OnSolve, which is the new emergency communication system, and that's grant funded as well.
Okay.
I wasn't finished.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I noticed we said we paid 6,000 on the previous page, but we also have bills for 2,000, 4,000, and another 3,000 all for ComEd. So we're paying ComEd 2,000, 4,000, 3,000, all even numbers.
And 6,000.
That's $6,000 one. And if you turn to page 8.
Yeah, 300.
So each facility gets a separate bill. Each facility that has power gets a separate bill. It is not one bill for the entire village.
Yeah, see, part of the rest is $399.
But my question is, why is it exactly $2,000? Why is it like $2,011.98 or something like
Well,
that?
since those under 10,000, I don't have those checks or bills in front of me. The board was only provided bills that are over $10,000. Bills over $10,000 require board approval. Anything under $10,000 does not require board approval. So anything over $10,000, the purchase order as well as the justification of the charge is there. If you guys want to have questions on those payments, you guys can exclude those, and I can pull documentation and have that provided at the next board meeting. I don't have a problem in doing that. But I'm just letting you explain you all the methodology of how this was put together.
We understand that, but 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, and 3,000 even numbers for ComEd is odd.
It just doesn't look right. I mean, it's not $6,378.98. Like everything else on the page, say 6,000, 2,000, 4,000, 3,000. When I see something like that,
Potentially could be on a payment plan as well.
That's what I was saying, it's a payment plan.
payment plan?
Yes, I assure you, because I know we're not current with our bills, but we can verify, you can place it on hold, we can verify, but I'm pretty sure we're on a payment plan with them and Aqua.
Okay, so that, my last question is, 2, 3, 6, and 8, comment that just, to me doesn't look right. I know I'm learning to look for round numbers. There's something wrong with my it's on the payment plan.
And there's one here, you finished, sir? I'm sorry, Justine? Okay. There's one here.
I did have one.
Okay.
Do we have the money in our accounts now to pay these immediately?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and then you have park and rents for $399.02. Is anybody over there? How are we pulling, electric bill, that is, because nobody's even in that facility.
Mayor, the electric has to
Still
be,
going on?
it has to be running on in the facility, especially when we go into the winter months. You have to
I
keep
understand
power.
run the water and all that stuff. Okay, I'm just wondering, that's really hard to go back. You should, okay.
And which facility is that? Are we talking about the farm? So, it says Parks and Recs.
Yeah,
Which
that's what it
facility
says.
are we talking about? Are we talking about Craig Park, where we have lights coming on at night? Are we talking about
Now,
the lake?
That's you guys. I don't know. I'm just looking at the
Okay,
bills.
I'm just throwing that out there to you, just.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question. Department Village Manager. This is dated 9/8. Is this for the month of October? This invoicing? Everything that we received, is this for the month of October?
Yeah, this is recent.
August.
Yeah, this is.
So what month is the village manager's Blue Cross Blue Shield if we didn't have a village manager in office?
So basically, that's a back payment of Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we're supposed to make a monthly payment into the health insurance. There was a gap between May and before I got installed, where there were no POs signed by a manager. So we were catching up from bills that were not signed and approved from that time period.
Can we get a summary of that?
Yeah.
Of the bills that were not paid, and now we're paying a gap from a gap?
No problem.
Because this looks like this was last month's. To me, just looking at this,
No.
because it's on here for every department.
So it's a check run. So basically, checks weren't cut until I approved the checks, until I was able to approve the checks to be cut. So that date is the date the actual checks were cut and printed. What I can request, we can scan every single purchase order. I don't have a problem doing that. That's going to be very valueless, but I don't have a problem doing that. I assure you that I've reviewed every single one of these bills. I sat with the finance department and bills payable, and I went through every single one of the bills that are on this list to be paid.
I am specifically looking for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
We're behind. We've been behind in paying Blue Cross.
So you're saying this money here is 3 months payments for each department? When you say you're behind, because this doesn't look like 3 months worth of payment.
Okay.
So I'm not understanding. It's not 3 months.
So we made it when I first came in. We made a payment to Blue Cross. This is to keep us current. Every time we get current with Blue Cross, something happens, and then we lag back in paying them, and then we make a large payment to pay them back again, and then we start paying on time. So there's a large sum payment paid to Blue Cross. Now this is the regular payment that's supposed to be going out.
Okay, and that's what it looks like, the regular payment. So if it's the regular payment, what are we paying for in August for village manager? If we didn't have one in August.
That comes out of the village. So Blue Cross, when you see village manager, that doesn't mean it's being paid for the village manager. It means it comes out the village manager fund in the budget. So like insurance, the village's liability coverage, insurance, colonial, and other insurance policies from the public. That comes out of that budget. That comes out of the village manager's budget line item in their budget, because that's the amounts they have to account for when they're budgeting for the village. But I mean, I have no problem being transparent and showing you that, but I assure you that's what that is. But we can do that. I don't have a problem.
Okay, do they, I'll be right with you. She's finished?
No, I wasn't finished. I have one question. Verizon Wireless. That's for cell phones?
That is for cell phones. That is for wireless data connections for the police vehicles and the police cars as well. So each police car has a wireless card that's attached to the computers. So we pay for data for those, and for cell phones as well.
How many cell phones do we have?
I can get an accounting for that with you, for you. I can tell you the bill used to be significantly much higher, but I can get you an exact accounting of how many cell phones, who has them, and everything.
If you could do it, I appreciate it.
Not a
I had
problem.
a problem with that before.
Not a problem.
Thank you, women. Elevator inspections. I noticed there's a couple of those in here. So the village pays for the elevator inspection?
Police department has an elevator that requires to be inspected.
These are the police departments?
Yes.
Okay.
On that same note, while she's asking a question, it also pays for when we have to do inspections over in other facilities like the doghouse.
No, they pay for their own elevator
I was going
inspection.
to ask, if we have to have an inspection from code enforcement, I noticed that, do they have to go and check, or do we pay for that as well, or is that separate?
No, the facility has to pay for that, and the code enforcement just needs proof of documentation of the inspection for their code enforcement inspection. And Trustee Wilson, I just want to clarify, information that you need looked up is cell phones assigned, and what else?
So I do, the gas, I know it's 8,000. That's kind of even number two. Do we monitor who get?
Director Richardson can answer that question.
Do we monitor, because I know at one point, there's gas, is that including
Golf
gas at the
course.
golf course?
No,
Is
it's
that-
not. No, it's not.
Where is that gas captured?
The golf course pays their own gas bill. We don't get their bills for their gas. This gas is for Village Hall and the tank at Public Works.
So is this 8,000 for 1 month too? Or is it, is it a gap and we catching up?
This will make us current with gas. That 8,000 includes diesel, unleaded, and the oil for the changing of the vehicles, the oils of that nature.
Do we track the gas usage, who uses gas and how that works? Because 8,000 for gas is an even number, and just questioning, do we track it?
I can answer that question. Okay. This is very.
'Cause this is just
No,
for
this is
Village
very-
Hall and Public Works.
So this is a very easy answer. We track the gas. The mechanism to track the gas broke. We were not approved to replace the system because the entire system has to be replaced. We were not approved at the time by a village manager to make that fix, because that's a capital expense, very large expense to replace that system. So no, at this time, no, it's not being tracked. It has been a concern that's been brought up at several staff meetings that we've had in the past. It's been a known issue and concern, and we will get it addressed. Now we will. So I'm just being honest, because a lot of these subjects, so the board, I understand that. So what I'm trying to explain to the board is, this is not a new issue. This is an issue that has been brought up in previously to get addressed. We were told it was a capital expense. The third reading of the budget has not been approved, and we were told not to make any capital expenses or improvement until there's an approved budget presented to the board. Okay? I will put that on top of my list as far as things that need to get done once we get a third reading of the budget done, and we get that replaced.
Whoa. Here comes another big mess. Boy, and this was a mess. maybe the presenter from IRH should have been more prepared with his figures and his presentation, but the treasurer's behavior is questionable. Did the treasurer have a meltdown? Is he a bad role model for our village and our children? What do you think? You take a look.
We received $144,000. When was that, last month? Last month?
So, okay. Was that on board bills payable? The 144,000 last month? Okay.
Or was it the month before? I don't have the documents in front of me, so
If I could get a copy of the contract, the fee schedule, and then how much we paid, I don't know. And then we could find it.
Mayor Covington, board members, listen, I sat here long enough and heard enough of this here. This here is, there's no results that's given to the board. No numbers given to the board except PowerPoint presentations, and we giving them $650,000 for PowerPoint presentations, okay? There is what is called a month-end statement. When you actually completing bank statements, reconciliation reports, you actually supposed to have a month-end statement every single month. These guys been here, the accountant's been here long enough to give you a month-end statement of the bank statement versus the fund balance that they actually reconcile. You're supposed to have numbers in front of you, and I don't understand why this board is even considering paying when Lauterbach and Amon gave us audit reports. They gave us the audit reports first, I know for sure, before we gave them $42,000 for their work. They gave us results. You have IRH not giving us results, and we're considering giving them another $258,000 for non-results, for PowerPoint presentations here.
Well,
There's nothing here.
That's not a PowerPoint presentation, and the work that my people are doing in this village every day is not a PowerPoint presentation. Let me just be clear with you. You're an accountant, I suppose. So accountants have to go through your documents that haven't been maintained for years. And so my staff is there putting together your records. They're going through reconciling your records, completing your ledgers, things that a treasurer should have been on top of from the beginning. And so we are working back, trying to complete your work from 2011 forward. My people are in there doing the accounting work. We're not Lauterbach and whoever the hell you're talking about. Our people are straightening out your records. That's what we were hired to do. That is what our accountants do here every day. And not only that, we do more than what the contract requires. Manager Pate called me the other day and said, contact MFT and check and because you had this $250,000 deficit.
Right.
So I called MFT, and what they told me is that you haven't filed a maintenance request since 2011. And so there is a lot of money, like the trees you've been talking about all night, that could be paid for using MFT funds. So we have a meeting,
filing the maintenance form will give us a lot of money. Am I right, Ed?
We have a meeting next week with MFT to go through and find out just how much money out of the $101,058,000 that has been spent over the last years that can come back into your accounts. And the $250,000 that was treated as a loan, you're going to get back. So the idea that we sit here and do nothing is just a bunch of poppycock. You sit here and humiliate us every chance you get. Tell me what you've been doing as the president.
Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do nothing. I'm sorry. They
calm down. Just calm down.
monthly reports supposed to be given at least 30 days. They've been here since
calm down. They are
1 year.
Okay, just
They've
calm
been here
down.
for 1 year and
Please calm down.
they messing up our tax dollars. I'm sorry.
That's
These
okay.
people
Just calm down. Just calm down. Please calm down. Stop it.
The person who
Please.
messed up the tax dollars.
Okay.
I'm done
Mr.
with it.
Ed, I have a
I'm
question.
done with it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm done.
Just a second. Order, please. Order. Okay, Trustee Wilson and Trustee Payton, Trustee Oscar Brown.
Mr. Ed, my only question here is, I see where we have an invoice for $258,000, and I don't see any reports. I would like maybe to see every month, you're doing a lot of work. Document it, give it to us so we can see. Billable hours.
I document the work that our staff does here. We document the work that our staff does here. Our staff is working on ledgers. Our staff is working on reconciliation. If you want us you have, our reports tell you what our staff is accomplishing. And what we're being asked to do is to turn back the clock as if nothing ever happened, nothing ever went wrong here. We're working on the tip accounts, we're working on your general ledger, we're working on all of your finance documents each and every day. Our people are here 8 hours a day working. We're bringing in more people to